Other civil uprising in India post 1857 revolt. The revolt of 1857, often considered India's first war of independence, was followed by several civil uprisings across different regions of the country. This movement were driven by socio-economic exploitation, religious influence, and opposition to British colonial policy. Indigo Revolt 1859 to 60. Indigo Revolt was a significant peasant movement against the forced cultivation of indigo by British planters in Bengal. British planters forced farmers to cultivate indigo on their land at exploitative rates. Farmers were given loans, दादोन system. Loans उसको क्या कहते थे? दादोन system. Trapping them in debt. उनको ट्रैप किया जाता था डेब्ट में, दादोन system. The soil became infertile after continuous indigo cultivation affecting food production. Planters used violent methods, including beatings and destruction of crops, to enforce cultivation. Course of revolt started in Govindpur village, Nadia district, West Bengal. गोविंदपुर नादिया वेस्ट बंगाल से चालू हुआ अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ इंडिगो रेवोल्यूशन दिगंबर विश्वास और विष्णु विश्वास, दिगंबर और विष्णु, फार्मर इंडिगो वर्कर्स. ठीक. इन बाई 1860 इट स्प्रेड टू नादिया, पबना, खुलना, ढाका, मालदा, दीजनपुर. ठीक. नादिया, पबना, खुलना, ढाका, मालदा, दीनजपुर. हरिश्चंद्र मुखर्जी, एडिटर ऑफ हिंदू पैट्रियट, played a major role in spreading awareness through newspapers and journals. किन्होंने? हरिश्चंद्र मुखर्जी, एडिटर ऑफ हिंदू पैट्रियट. दीनबंधु मित्र exposed the atrocities of planters through famous play नील दर्पण. दीनबंधु मित्र ने कौन सा प्ले लिखा? नील दर्पण 1860 में, which was later translated by Michael Madhusudan Dutt, was a tool for political activism. दीनबंधु मित्र ने नील दर्पण लिखा 1860 में, और हरिश्चंद्र मुखर्जी ने हिंदू पैट्रियट में लिखा. माइकल मधुसूदन दत्त ने क्या किया? ट्रांसलेट किया. The movement successfully forced the British to pass the Indigo Commission Report 1860, which acknowledged the exploitation and led the decline of forced indigo farming. ठीक है. सन्यासी रिवोल्ट 1763 to 1800. Sannyasi revolt was a series of uprisings by Hindu and Muslim ascetics, sannyasi and fakir, against British economic policies and excessive taxation. Sannyasi revolt 1763 to 1800. Sannyasi revolt was a series of uprisings led by Hindu and Muslim ascetics. एटीन 59 to 60. ये नादिया वेस्ट बंगाल में वो हुआ था, गोविंदपुर विलेज. अब सन्यासी वो 1860 में, 1859-60 में. सन्यासी रिवोल्ट 1763 to 1800. सन्यासी रिवोल्ट was a series of uprisings led by Hindu and Muslim ascetics, sannyasi and fakirs, during British economic policies, against British economic policies and excessive taxation. क्या हुआ? The British imposed heavy restriction on visiting pilgrimage site. High land revenue and restriction on trade disrupted their traditional way of life. Many sannyasis who had been warriors in earlier times took up arms against British. The movement was active in Bengal and Bihar. Warren Hastings, Governor General 1772 to 1785, suppressed the revolt by deploying the British Army. Notable literary reference: Bankim Chand Chatterjee's Anand Math, 1882, which portrays the struggle of sannyasi and includes the famous song Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram. 1882. Cause of the British imposed Warren Hastings. The movement was active in Bengal and Bihar. सन्यासी वाला by deploying British Army. Notable literary किसमें सन्यासी रिवोल्ट के बारे में रेफरेंस दिया गया है? बंकिम चंद्र चटर्जी के आनंद मठ में 1882। और इसी में क्या लिखा गया है? स्ट्रगल ऑफ सन्यासी एंड इंक्लूड द फेमस सॉन्ग वंदे मातरम। हाँ 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 हाँ। अब आगे देखते हैं हम लोग। संथाल रिवोल्ट 1855 to 56. Santhal Hul rebellion was tribal uprising by Sidhu and Kanha Murmu. Santhal 1855 to 56. Indigo 59 to 60. दिगंबर विश्वास और विष्णु विश्वास सन्यासीज फकीर और सन्यासियों का 1763 से लेके 1800। बंकिम चंद्र चटर्जी ने आनंद मठ लिखा 1882 में। हाँ आनंद मठ लिखा 1882 में। उन्होंने उसकी जिक्र की मतलब सन्यासी रिबेलियन का। वारेन हेस्टिंग ने भी मतलब प्रयास किया दबाने का। संथल रेवोल्यूशन 1855 to 1856 में हुआ। संथल हुल रिबेलियन was a tribal uprising led by Sidhu and Kanhu Murmu against the British and Jamindari system. Exploitation of Santhal tribe by money lenders, Mahajans, landlords and British revenue officials. Forced labor, begar, forced labor and high taxation on Santhal lands. Started in Bhagalpur and Rajmahal Hills. भागलपुर कहाँ? राजमहल हिल झारखंड बिहार and West Bengal. Bhagalpur and Rajmahal. Santhal initially gained control over large areas, defeating British forces. The British retailed brutally and killing thousands of Santhal rebels. भागलपुर एंड राजमहल हिल में लगभग बहुत ज़्यादा एक्टिव था। आउटकम क्या हुआ? द ब्रिटिश इस्टेब्लिश द संथल परगना 1856 एज सेपरेट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव डिवीजन टू प्रिवेंट द फर्दर अपराइजिंग। तो ब्रिटिशर्स ने क्या किया? एक फिक्स्ड एरिया डिसाइड कर दिया गया संथल परगना नाम से 1856 में, ताकि और जो है क्या ना हो मतलब अपराइजिंग्स ना हो, मतलब भिड़ंत ना हो। पबना अपराइजिंग 1873-76। संथाल तो 1856 में। पबना अपराइजिंग 1873 to 76। 1876 to 1873 to 76। Pabna uprising was a farmers protest in Pabna in Bangladesh against high rents and illegal eviction by zamindars. Course of revolt: farmers formed tenants association to resist the Jamawras. Farmer formed tenants association to resist Jamindar. Movement was mostly peaceful with legal petition and non-cooperation. ठीक। The British government later introduced Bengal Tenancy Act 1885 to protect tenants' rights. Bengal Tenancy Act 1885। अभी नींद लग रही, थोड़ा सो के फिर वो करते हैं। Wahhabi movement 1820 to 1870. Wahhabi movement was a pan-Islamic revivalist movement inspired by Abdul Wahhab of Arabia 1820 to 70 and brought to India by Sayyid Ahmad Barelvi. वहाबी मूवमेंट पैन इस्लामिक रिवाइवल मूवमेंट अब्दुल वहाब अरबिया के द्वारा, ठीक, और इंडिया में कौन, सैयद अहमद बरेलवी लाए, इंस्पायर्ड बाय शाह वलीउल्लाह ऑफ दिल्ली। किससे इंस्पायर था, दिल्ली के शाह वलीउल्लाह के। द मूवमेंट एम टू प्यूरिफाई इस्लाम एंड रेसिस्ट ब्रिटिश रूल। Gained support in northwestern frontier, Bengal, Bihar and central provinces, opposed British interference in Muslim religious affairs. Sayyid Ahmad Barelvi captured Peshawar in 1830. He was killed in the Battle of Balakot 1831 में Battle of Balakot हुआ while fighting against Sikh. Leadership passed to Maulvi Qasim, Vilayat Ali, Inayat Ali, Ahmadullah and others. Patna became the center of the movement, and after Barelvi death, with branches in Hyderabad, Madras, Bengal, UP and Bombay. इसमें क्या हुआ, British launched military campaigns to suppress Wahhabi followers in 1860s. By 1870s, movement declined due to arrest and execution. Wahhabi movement 1820s to 1870 तक चला। शाह मोहम्मद बरेलवी, सैयद अहमद बरेलवी ने, मतलब शाह वलीउल्लाह दिल्ली से प्रभावित होके, मतलब वहाबी मूवमेंट चला प्यूरिफाई करने के लिए इस्लाम को और ब्रिटिश रूल को रेसिस्ट करने के लिए। वो मारे गए, बालाकोट के युद्ध में मारे गए वो सैयद अहमद बरेलवी। उसके बाद लीडरशिप चली गई मौलवी कासिम, विलायत अली, इनायत अली और अहमदुल्ला के पास, ठीक है। कूका मूवमेंट 1840s to 1872. कूका मूवमेंट लेड बाय भगत जवाहर मल, सिया साहेब एंड राम सिंह। भगत जवाहर मल एंड राम सिंह, सिया साहेब एंड राम सिंह was aimed at purifying Sikhism and resisting British rule. Opposed British interference in Sikh religious practices, wanted to remove superstitions and corrupt practices from Sikhism. Kooka movement started in western Punjab in 1840s. By 1872, Ram Singh was exiled at Rangoon. Kooka movement Bhagat Jawahar Mal Singh, where he later died in 1885. The movement laid the foundation of leadership, political activism against British rule. Civil uprisings and tribal revolt in colonial India. British colonial administration faced multiple revolts before and after the revolt of 1857. These uprisings were often led by peasant tribals and religious groups against British exploitation, revenue policies and socio-religious interference. Pagalpanth 1825 uprising. Pagalpanth was a semi-religious group founded by Karim ya Karamsa in Bengal. It was initially a religious reform movement but later turned into an armed resistance against landlord and British rule. Pagalpanth. Tipu, son of Karim Shah, took leadership and led tribal peasants against oppressive Jamindars. Tipu. In 1825, he captured Sherpur, now in Bangladesh, and declared himself king. He exercised sovereign powers by appointing judges and magistrates challenging British authority. British later suppressed the movement through military action. It reflected early rural discontent against feudal oppression, one of the first organized peasant movement in eastern Bengal. Pagalpanth. Karim Shah. Fariji movement was a socio-religious reform movement founded by Haji Saridullah in Faridpur, Bengal, Haji Saritullah in Faridpur, Bengal. It focused on purifying Islam and resisting British policies. Raju, 1818 to 1862. After Haji Saritullah death, his son Dadu Mian, 1819 to 1862, expanded the movement. The movement became militant, aimed to expel British rule from Bengal. The revolt continued from 1818 to 1862, merging later with Wahhabi movement. फिर आगे चल के ये फराजी मूवमेंट किसमें वहाबी मूवमेंट में तब्दील होगा. Created strong anti-British sentiment among Muslims in Bengal, laid foundation of later peasant uprising in eastern Bengal. Velu Thampi revolt 1805 to 1809. Velu Thampi, Diwan Velu Thampi of Travancore led a rebellion against subsidiary alliance system imposed by British under Lord Wellesley. Velu Diwan Thampi of Travancore led rebellion against subsidiary alliance सिस्टम इम्पोज्ड बाय ब्रिटिश अंडर लॉर्ड वेलेस्ली. अच्छा, वेलेस्ली ने सब्सिडरी अलायंस शुरू किया था. ब्रिटिश इंटरफियरेंस इन त्रवनकोर्स एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, ह्यूमिलेटिंग बिहेवियर ऑफ ब्रिटिश ऑफिशियल टूवर्ड्स इंडियन रूलर्स. वेलू थम्पी led the Nair battalion in the armed struggle, issued the Kundara Proclamation 1809, calling for mass resistance. British forces eventually crushed the rebellion. Velu Thampi died by suicide to avoid capture. One of the early instances of organized resistance by the princely state against British rule, demonstrated resentment against the subsidiary alliance system. Velu Thampi report 1805 to 9. Vasudev Balwant Phadke revolt 1879 to 1883. Vasudev Balwant Phadke is considered one of the first Indian revolutionaries. 1879 to 1883. Organized first Indian revolutionaries organized the Ramosi tribes of Maharashtra into a guerrilla force. Vasudev Balwant Phadke conducted armed raids against British treasuries to fund this movement. Captured by the British in 1883 and died in prison. Inspired later revolutionaries like Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Bhagat Singh, showed that armed resistance against British rule was possible. Gadkari revolt 1844, Kolhapur. Gadkaris were hereditary workers in Maratha forces. Causes British confiscated their lands and placed them under Mamalatdars, government officers. Mamalatdars. Exploitative revenue collection and loss of employment under British rule. Revolted in 1844 at Kolhapur, but were suppressed by British forces. The revolt highlighted peasant discontent in Maharashtra. Khond uprisings 1846 to 1855. The Khond, a tribal community in the hilly region of Tamil Nadu, Bengal and central India, were fiercely independent. Tamil Nadu, Bengal and central India. British interference in tribal custom, especially the abolition of human sacrifice Maria tradition, introduced new taxes and encroachment by Jamindars. Chakra Biswai, a young king, led the resistance, joined by Ghumsar, Kala Handi and other tribal groups. British forces used military campaigns to suppress the movement. Outcome क्या हुआ? Suppressed by 1855, but tribal resistance continued against British policies. Coal Rebellion 1831 to 1832. The Coal Rebellion was a major tribal uprising in the Chota Nagpur region, Jharkhand. British disrupted traditional land ownership patterns exploited by moneylenders and Jamindars. Forced labor beggar system. Begari system. Buddho Bhagat led the uprising, attacking British outposts. British crushed the rebellion, executing many coal traders. Highlighted tribal resistance to British policies, paved the way for later tribal uprisings like Santhal revolt. Wagher revolt 1818 to 1819 Baroda. Wagher revolt 1818 to 1819 Baroda. Wagher is warrior tribe in Gujarat who revolted against British rule. Outcome क्या हुआ? British forces crushed the movement by 1819. It demonstrated early tribal opposition to British expansion. अब chronological order of major revolt before 1857 क्या है? Bengal Sepoy Mutiny 1764. Revolt of Indian Sepoys in Hector Munro's army after Battle of Buxar 1764. Vellore Sepoy Mutiny 1806. First major Sepoy uprising of Tamil Nadu against British military policies. Vellore. Revolt of Kutch 1819 to 31. Local chief resisted British control. Coal Revolt 1831 to 32. Tribal uprising of Jharkhand by Buddha Bhagat. Santhal 1855 to 56. One of the largest tribal uprising led by Sidhu and Kanhu Murmu. Santhal rebellion, known as Santhal Hul, was a major tribal uprising against British exploitation. Causes: British officials and moneylenders imposed excessive taxes and debts. Interest rates as high as 50 to 50% led the economic distress. Forced labor and illegal land seizures angered the Santhals. Course of revolt led by four brothers: Sidhu, Kanhu, Chand and Bhairav Murmu. Sidhu, Kanhu, Chand and Bhairav. Rebellion spread across Bhagalpur and Rajmahal Hills. In 1855, Santhal defeated British forces in Bhagnidhi, Bhagalpur. Major Burog led British troops to crush the rebellion. Commissioner Brown and Major Leloyd executed mass killings. By 1856, rebellion was completely suppressed. Forced the British to create Santhal Pargana Act 1856, granting the separate administrative area for Santhal. Inspired later tribal movement like Birsa Munda Ulgulan 1899 to 1900. अब देखते हैं British colonial administration witnessed several tribal and peasant uprisings due to their exploitative policies which disrupted traditional socio-economic structure. These revolts were expression of resistance against land revenue policies, forced labor, restriction on traditional practices, जमींदारी ऑपरेशन. ठीक, भील, उनमें से एक भील भी था. 1818 to 1831, Bhil community residing in the Khandesh region, Maharashtra, revolted against the British due to economic hardship and fear of foreign rule. Agricultural hardship due to British revenue policies. Displacement caused by forest and land loss. British officials blamed Peshwa Bajirao II and Trimbakji Danglia for inciting the rebellion. Causes of revolt. The revolt initially began in 1818 with Bhils attacking British installation under Sevaram. The Bhil revolted again in 1825. British used military force to suppress the movement. The revolt was crushed by 1831, but Bhil resistance continued in later years. Rampa Rebellion 1879 to 1880. Rampa Hills, now in Andhra Pradesh, were home of several tribal communities that resisted British rule. British Forest Act restricted shifting cultivation, podu कहते थे उस समय, and hunting. Tribal people faced exploitation by moneylenders and zamindars. A rebellion was led by Alluri Sitaram Raju 1922 to 24 in later years. Earlier uprisings of 19th century were crushed by British military campaigns, highlighted tribal resistance to colonial economic policies, inspired future tribal uprisings in Andhra Pradesh. Rampa Rebellion. Samp Sabha 1883 and Bhil Reform Movement. Surji Bhagat and Govind Guru led social reform movement among Bhil tribe in Mewar, Rajasthan. Reform healed society and organized resistance against British rule. Address issues of land dispossessions, debt bondage, and social evils. Govind Guru's movement led to the 1913 Mangarh massacre, where British troops killed over 1500 protesters. Some Sabha. Birsa Munda Revolt 1899 to 1900 Munda Rebellion, one of the most significant tribal uprising against British colonial rule. It was led by Birsa Munda, a charismatic tribal leader. Exploitative zamindari system imposed by British disrupted Munda land ownership. Introduction of individual land ownership instead of traditional Khunkatti community ownership. British interference in Munda socio-ecological tradition. Cause of revolt in 1895, Birsa declared himself messenger of God and initiated the Sardari movement. 1899 to 1900, Mundas launched armed attack to British officials and landlords. Birsa called for we will fight with non-tribals and color this land red with blood like red flag. Arrested in February 1900, he died in June 1900 in British custody. Impact क्या हुआ? Led to the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act 1908, which protected tribal land rights, inspired later tribal movement in Jharkhand. Thakkar Bapa and Adivasi identity. Thakkar Bapa was a Gandhian social reformer. He coined the term Adivasi, Thakkar Bapa, Adivasi. For India's indigenous tribes, he was General Secretary of Harijan Sevak Sangh and worked for tribal upliftment. Hoj Ho Revolt 1820 to 21 Bihar. Ho tribe of Bihar rebelled against British interference in their traditional governance and land system. Causes: British imposition of land revenue disrupted their economy. British tried to establish zamindari and judicial control over tribal regions. Course of revolt was led by local Ho chiefs. British forces crushed the movement with large-scale execution. The rebellion forced the British to rethink their tribal policies. Khairwar Revolt 1874 Bihar, led by Bhagirath Manjhi. A tribal movement against British imposed forest and revenue laws. Outcome क्या हुआ? British troops violently suppressed the movement. Surinder Sai's rebellion 1857 to 62 Sambalpur, Odisha. Surinder Sai, a claimant to the throne of Sambalpur, led a guerrilla war against British rule. Causes: British refused to recognize Surinder Sai's legitimate claim to the throne. Local resentment against British administrative policies. The rebellion continued for several years. 1862, Surinder Sai surrendered, ending the movement, inspired later regional resistance movement in Odisha. Mapla Revolt 1921 Malabar, Kerala. One of the largest peasant uprisings in British India, led by Muslim tenants against Hindu landlords. Mopla 1921. Oppressive zamindari system in Malabar, economic distress among Muslim peasants. Forces of the revolt peasants launched a violent uprising targeting British officials and landlords. British military forces brutally crushed the movement. Impact क्या हुआ? Led to severe repression, mass arrest and execution. British used the revolt to divide Hindu-Muslim unity. Ahom Revolt 1828 Assam, led by Gomdhar Kumar. This was a rebellion by the Ahom community against British occupation of Assam. The British, after initially promising restore Ahom rule later refused. The revolt was suppressed. Tana Bhagat movement 1914 Chota Nagpur, Jharkhand, led by Jatra Bhagat, Balram Bhagat and Devi Menia Bhagat. The Oraon tribes opposed British rule and Hindu landlords. Movement was non-violent, inspired by Gandhian principles. Jado Nang and Naga resistance, Manipur 1920s to 1930. Jadonang was a Naga tribal leader who fought against British rule. Inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, he led Hiraka movement. British executed Jadonang in 1931, but his disciple Rani Gaidinliu continued the fight. ठीक, ये इंट्रोडक्शन ख़त्म होता है, अब आते हैं आगे हैं हम लोग PYQs पे. थैंक यू, बाय बाय.